So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we have Dr. Ali here, who's a Canadian Research Chair in Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence. So Dr. Ali is an academic entrepreneur in cybersecurity, and he's a Canadian Chair in Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence. He's the Director of Cyber Science Lab at University of Guelph. It's a research lab dedicated to advanced research and training in cybersecurity. And he's also the Director of Masters of Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence program at University of Guelph. So today he'll give us a talk on cyber threat hunting and intelligence. So after you, Dr. Ali.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. It is really great talking to the hopefully future cybersecurity experts here. It rarely happens for me to have this opportunity, so it's great, and thanks for the invitation. Well, today I'm going to talk about what is cyber threat hunting and cyber threat intelligence. I tried to keep my talk to around about 30 minutes to 35 minutes, so there would be enough time for questions at the end. I really love to know more about participants in general. What are your interests or understanding in cybersecurity? And of course, what are your feedbacks on my talk? So yeah, I'm just trying to give like 20 minutes at the end to just hear from you and have more interactions. So these are my contacts. You can just email me at ali@cybersciencelab.org if you like to, and then my website, my lab website address is cybersciencelab.org. As you have seen, you have heard in other presentations, we are living at the age of big data. Everything is expanding, all the data, volatility, variety, volume, and velocity are just increasing significantly. And that is the case for cybersecurity as well. In cybersecurity, we are seeing more and more attacks targeting different organizations and using different attack vectors from hacking groups all around the globe. So with the size of data and the type of data being increased so fast, so quickly, we need more practices or newer practices in cybersecurity as well. So I usually start all my presentations in cybersecurity with this slide to give everyone a good view of different layers in cybersecurity and different technologies that exist there. Very generally or very high level speaking, we have 5 layers in cybersecurity. The first layer is architecture, and we try to secure the architecture. Well, these are systems like identity management, where you put your username and a password, right? Or when you have, if you have been told that you need to have a unique username and a unique password, or like a password which is like 5 characters, 10 characters, and a combination. All those things fall into making a secure architecture layer. On the next layer, we have passive defense mechanisms. These are mechanisms such as firewall, such as antivirus. These are technologies that are sitting passively, and they have signature, or they know about the properties of a specific attack payload or a malicious payload, and they are identifying activities, malicious activities, detect them or prevent them, right? So sometimes they are like antivirus that blocks or firewall that blocks the malicious activity, or sometimes it could be an alerting system that gives an alert to a security expert that we see something suspicious. But as long as they are passively sitting and looking at the data that are coming to the network or the events on the devices, they are all falling into passive defense mechanisms. Then we have the active defense layer. In the active defense layer, the assumption is the attacker was able to bypass or secure architecture and the passive defense mechanism. So the attacker is inside the network, inside the perimeter. Now we are trying to actively hunt for them in our environment. So we are trying to find footprints of the attackers or finding abnormal activities and then analyze them, deep dive into them to understand whether they are malicious or not malicious. And if they are malicious, how we can stop that from happening. So the assumption on the active defense is the attackers are already inside the network. And then we have threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is the practice of collecting data about all hacking groups, all external parties around the globe, understanding what are their tactics, techniques, and procedures. So for example, how a hacking group based in China is acting, how a hacking group based in US is acting, how the hacking group based in France are acting, right? Then we create a profile of them, and then we use this profile to first find them, right? And second, to manage the investment in our environments. And the last layer in cybersecurity is offense. This is normally what the LEAs, law enforcement agencies are doing. And what they do is they are kind of attacking back, right? So they know, they find, they detect the cyber criminals or hackers' infrastructure. They try to seize that infrastructure and bring it down, right? So for example, if there is a ransomware attack, and the decryption keys are stored in a server somewhere, say in Netherlands, the law enforcement agencies can work with the law enforcement agency in Netherlands, so they can seize the server and they get all the keys, and we can use the key for decrypting the encrypted contents. So these are the 5 layers that we have in all cybersecurity environments. And if you're looking to cost value analysis, the cost of creating a secure architecture is minimal and the value of it is maximal, right? That's the reason that you see many organizations are focusing a lot on, say, making sure that the users has strong passwords, or they are trying to educate the users so they are not falling for the spam messages. Because with those kind of activities, we are building a secure architecture with minimum cost, and we are responding to a lot of attacks. Then we have the passive defense mechanism. They are passive, they don't have much cost to monitor or to maintain, but they are giving good values. And the more you go up, the cost would be higher. That is the reason that it is quite costly to create an offensive security team, a security team that is trying to attack back the hackers' infrastructure or cyber criminals' infrastructure. But looking at that, we need to understand what is the role of each of those 5 layers, or what should be our expectation of those 5 layers. If your organization is only targeted by script kiddies, these are like the hackers that they don't know how to change or create a new hacking payloads. They are just getting the hacking payloads that are widely used from internet or from other places, and they run against their targets with the hope that they can get into those organizations. The secure architecture, everything that we do around about secure architecture is mainly focused to mitigate the risk of script kiddies. So no one is expecting from a secure architecture to be able to sustain attacks from cyber criminals. These cyber criminals are people who are trained, but their main goal is to gain monetary advantage, and they are normally acting lonely, right? So the main I would say model of operandi, the way that the cyber criminals are acting is they are trying to get into the organization. Once they get to the target, they can benefit from that, right? So cyber criminals, the best technology that we have, the best defense that we have against cyber criminals are passive defense mechanisms. So the firewall, your IDS, your antivirus, all of them are there to just stop cyber criminals' risk. But then if you are looking at funded hacking teams, these are the hacking teams that they have funding to compromise a target, right? So imagine they are like a company, right? So they have been hired to compromise company X or to compromise organization Y. Well, if you are a funded hacking team, you have a lot of time and resources to bypass secure architecture and bypass passive defense mechanism. So you eventually bypass them and get into the organization, right? So unlike the cyber criminals that their goal was to get into the target so they can make monetary gains or meet their purpose, funded hacking teams are not interested in getting any monetary advantage by compromising the organization. You're usually paid through other means, and they are focused towards a specific goal. If you are dealing with these kind of teams, then your secure architecture or passive defense mechanisms are not sustaining that long. So you would need to have active threat hunting. So you need to have people there or processes in your organization that their assumption is the attackers are inside. Let's find them. Let's find them based on what we know from the attackers. But if you are dealing with a state-sponsored hacking team, these are the hacking teams that are supported by different states or different government organizations. So they have like a lot of legal protection. Plus, their main goal is to build reusable payloads that they can run against many targets. If you are going to deal with this kind of hacking teams, you definitely need to have cyber threat intelligence, meaning you need to collect intelligence, information from the hackers and what they are doing, different hacking groups, different teams all around the globe, and use them to your advantage. So you know what technologies would be useful against, say, a hacking team operating based in France or based in China, based in US, based in Mexico, right? And if you want to thwart their risk, what you should do. And you need to keep getting this information almost in real time from all around the globe so you can be prepared to defend yourself in that case. I am putting these here because I want to clarify that if you are an organization, say, if you are just a shop in the street, a retail shop in the street, your main concern would be script kiddies. So if you have a password and a patched system, you would be good. You would be good, right? And most of the time, cyber criminals are not interested on that level of the attacks. If you are a company that are like a local company doing with some limited activities, you may be in the interest of cyber criminals. And at that point, you will need to spend and invest on your passive defense mechanisms, right? If you are a big target, like a bank, like a financial organization, or any essential organization, you would be in the target of funded hacking team. So you need to make sure that you have proper hunting in place. And if you are a critical organization that could be targeted by state-sponsored hackers, you need to build your cyber threat intelligence program. Why I am emphasizing on this slide? Because, you know, when we normally talk to people about cybersecurity, most of people understanding are either at this level that they need to have a password, they need to have a system patched or updated, right? Or those who are more technical, they are thinking about this passive defense mechanism, like cyber criminals who are doing the attack, and you may have antiviruses, firewalls, blah, blah, enabled on your organization, on your systems to protect yourself. But when we go through this, when we go up there, this is the time that we have cyber threat hunting. And if we go further off, we have cyber threat intelligence. I am going to focus mainly on these two layers in this topic, in this presentation. However, feel free to ask me questions about anything else in the cybersecurity environment after we are done with this presentation. What is the definition of cyber threat intelligence? If you Google cyber threat intelligence, this will be the definition that you see in Wikipedia. I just copied it like a few days ago. So the primary purpose of threat intelligence is to help organizations to understand the risk of severe external threats such as zero-day threats and exploits and threat actors, right? Well, this is basically right, but it is not complete, you know? And these days, a lot of companies are putting a lot of efforts and a lot of investment in cyber threat intelligence. Around 75% of firms in US and Canada, and American firms, North American and European companies, have highlighted that the cyber threat intelligence is the highest priority. But this is wrong, because, you know, the cyber threat intelligence is about knowing yourself and knowing your enemies, right? So you are going to find the balance between what you have in your organization and what your enemies, the hacking groups that may be interested in targeting you, the capabilities that they have or where they are acting, right? And then they try to mitigate their risk, which means you are trying to implement security solutions that are addressing the risk of those specific hacking teams. So cyber threat intelligence in one word is all about wisely investing in cybersecurity. You are investing on something that is in interest of the hacking groups that may target your organization. So, yeah, when you look into the cyber threat intelligence from different people point of view, These programs are becoming very costly as you are starting to run them in your organization. Because when you look into cyber threat intelligence, you need to have sources that can provide you information about tactics, techniques, and procedures of hacking groups all around the globe. You can imagine that this is quite costly. Although many organizations are subscribing to, say, cybersecurity companies who are providing these feeds to get access to this information. But since the size of information is quite huge and the level of knowledge and skills required to use this information is not that much available, that's one of the most important reasons that our Master of Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence program graduates are getting hired even before they finish their study at the University of Guelph, right? Because there's a huge demand in terms of resources that are understanding these attacks. They are familiar with these hacking groups and they know what are they and how they can mitigate these risks, right? That's the reason that these programs are becoming quite costly. So what you hear most and what I am hearing most working with many of the clients is they are really willing to prioritize intelligence requirements, produce unique, timely, look for threats, right? These are the things that everyone likes to have. But when they hear about the cost of the program, they would try to consider or have a second thought around it, right? CTI, threat intelligence, as I mentioned, is all about knowing yourself and knowing your enemies. So you can detect enemies inside your environment before they meet their objective, right? So just to tell you what we mean from CTI, threat intelligence is we try to collect information from these hacking groups. At the same time, we know that our secure architecture or passive defense mechanisms are not capable of addressing their risks, right? Because these are funded hacking teams. They are very well funded. They are going to bypass and they are going to come to your environments. So what we should do, we know them so we can educate ourselves based on the information that we have about them. And then we detect them when they are inside. And we try to detect them before they meet their objectives, before they cause the damage, right? That's the key element there, before they meet their objectives. So the CTI is all about making sure that we can find enemies inside our environments before they meet their objectives. So this is the real life of a CTI analyst, right? So you are dealing with multiple attackers, fighting with multiple attackers, and you are professional attackers out there at the same time, and you need to prioritize that you would just not allow those attackers to meet their objective. So this is the best comparison, right? So the CTI, if you want to look into it, is like fighting with multiple attackers at the same time. So how should we know whether we are even ready to have a cyber threat intelligence? I'm just mapping this with the art of fighting with multiple attackers at the same time. This is 7 street fighting tactics for a multiple attacker fight. So I'm just mapping that to what a cybersecurity person would do to make sure that they are ready for CTI. You first need to make sure that your organization is able to manage constant unpredictable movements, which means you are able to monitor what is happening in your organization. If there is a new job post, you need to check, make sure that you are not providing more than required information in your job posting. One of the things that we do on the very first week of Threat Intelligence Master Program is getting and working with the students to find out the list of hacking attempts that were started by seeing a job post. So for example, you are posting about that you need a network security administrator that is familiar with Cisco Bela technology. So with just putting that word, you are telling to the world that first, you do not have enough resources, right? And the technology that you use is Cisco, whatever you have. That would help a lot the attackers, right? And we have seen a lot of high-profile, successful attacks that were started just by reading these kind of basic information or marketing information, right? And you need to make sure that you are able to automatically patch all your systems, update them, all your systems, because you will never know when the vulnerabilities are detected. So you need to have the patching mechanism. The next level will be shielding. You need to have your antivirus, firewall, IDS, IPS, intrusion prevention system, intrusion detection systems in place. Then you need to have mechanisms in place to detect the attackers when they are in your network. Mechanisms like deploying honeypots or honey nets or sinkholes. And these are expensive. These are very expensive, right, to implement. Then you need to make sure that you can actually control your environment, right? There are many organizations that the cybersecurity team, even they know that they have attackers in their environment, but they cannot control, they don't have access to those resources that are required to stop the attackers. They cannot see them, so they don't have host and network visibility, so they don't know what is happening on that CEO machine, while that CEO machine was used by as the base for the attackers to target other people or other devices there, right? And you need to conduct regular penetration testing. If you have these 3 layers in your organization, then you can think about cyber threat intelligence, right? So you can control your environments, you know what is happening in your environment, you can detect the attackers, you can shield yourself against them, and you can constantly update yourself. Then it is the time to think about how to not waste your energy, right? So thinking about how your cyber threat intelligence program would look like and where you should invest to stop the attackers. And when you build this cyber threat intelligence, then you can create your active threat hunting. That's like protecting your loved ones in the street fighting, right? So when you know how those bad actors are acting, that will be the time that you go actively and find them when they are in the network. And we normally leave the strike back to the law enforcement agencies in the cybersecurity. Of course, if you're interested to join those organizations, there would be like a lot specific skill sets of how we are striking back and do the attacks, right? And trying to bring the organized cyber crimes down. That would be just the outer scope of this conversation. But I'm just trying to tell you that these are the 2 places that we talk about CTI and active threat hunting. Well, just giving you a feeling of what you will see or what you will face in cyber threat hunting. Of course, I'm not going to go to details of what is the meaning of these diagrams, right? But what we try to do in CTI is first model the hacker's activity, right? So we are trying to model the hackers, like you see on top there, that what they do first, second, third, and what activities they follow until they meet their objectives, actions, and their intents. Once they model them, we try to organize them on different incidents, on different campaigns, right? So we say, hacker 1 has done this to my organization, and I detected in the past, right? Hacker 2 did this, and I detected in the past, right? And we try to map this to the defenses that we have in your organization. These defenses could be technological, could be people, could be process, right? It could be like, I am hiring a new cyber threat intelligence analyst to help me identify these attacks or to help me detecting these things before they happen. Or it could be that I am installing the latest AI-based technology to detect to these attackers' activity based on their footprints, right? Based on their tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? That you're talking about. So, but that would be the life of a threat intelligence expert. If you want to come to this field and work in this field, you would be exposed to a lot of information about the hacking groups, what they do, and the procedures inside the organization that we have. And your main work would be to decide what should we do from the strategical point of view to stop the risk of these attackers, right? So this is quite an exciting career for those of you who want to follow, actually, and very well paid, by the way. First, you will get a very good understanding. You will be on top of the technology because these hacking groups are possibly the best of their best in their countries or in their places. And then you are trying to understand how you can efficiently address their risk. So the true measure of CTI success, cyber threat success, is to make sure that the attackers, that we are reducing the number of time that the attackers are successful and they can meet their objective, right? So that's the true measures. The measurement of CTI is not to stop the attackers to get into your organization. That is more about the detection, cybersecurity detection team, right? But the measure here is when they are inside, they cannot meet their objective, right? That's the reason that incident response and handling is a prerequisite for CTI, right? So if you want to have threat intelligence program, you need to first make sure that you are able to respond and handle the incidents as you are detecting them in your organization. Well, Once you have a cyber threat intelligence program, once you know how you can get information from the attackers, then it's the time to go to threat hunting, right? So, threat hunting is the art of being able to leverage the intelligence that you have to find attackers inside your organization. With threat intelligence, we are trying to create the strategic view, which means what are missing there, right? So this hacking team is doing that, that hacking team is doing that. So, and then I'm comparing it with what technologies that I have or people and processes I have in my organization, and try to strategically decide that I need to send these people to training, I need to buy these technologies, right? These are the views of CTI, right? So you have a strategic view. When you come to threat hunting, this is much more operational view, right? So you get the information from threat intelligence and try to hunt, right? For example, you are seeing that today, regularly Ali is sending 100 emails per day. Today he is sending 1,000 emails. Well, it could be an out of norm activity, right? It could be just there's a promotion and Ali has to send more emails, or it could be that Ali's account is compromised and it is used as the spamming message, as a spamming account, right? To send spams, right? These are what the threat hunters are doing, right? They try to find out of norm activities, and once they find them, they try to see any of these out of norm activities are mapping the threat intelligence information. If they are, then you confirm that you have a threat, that you have a hacking group in your organization. If they are not, then you need to deep dive and do forensics analysis, right? And saying, what was the reason that you see that out of norm activity in your organization? So that's more about threat hunting, trying to protect your loved ones, right? Trying to protect your most important assets. And this threat hunting has different meaning to different organizations. So for example, if you talk to Facebook, all their threat hunting activities is focused around protecting celebrities' accounts, right? Because for them, the most important assets are the celebrities or the influencers that they have, right? They need to make sure that no hackers can compromise their account. So you will see that that's the focus of their threat hunting. But if you talk about the threat hunting with say someone working in the bank, the threat hunting team in the bank is very much focused on their transaction servers, right? So they want to make sure that no attacker can get access to those transaction information that they have in the bank. So that's the major asset, right? What they need to protect in their organization. And that's where threat hunting is fully focused. The goal of having cyber threat intelligence with the threat hunting is to reduce the time to respond to an incident. To identify the incident and respond to it properly. I recall that when I started my career in cybersecurity, which was like back in 2005, 2006, the response time was around about 48 hours, which means from the time that we detect an attacker, it took us 48 hours, around 2 days, to process all the information and decide what is the best move against this attack. The reason that you need to give a lot of thought about your response to an attack is, if you are responding early, you are telling to the attackers that you detect them, and then the attackers will rush to cause the damage or will rush to cause the impact that they were looking for, right? So for example, if you identify the recent hacking group in your organization and they try to exfiltrate or collect the credit card information, if the attacker group doesn't know that you know about them, they probably try to continue their campaign, try to compromise more machines, try to get access to the more machines before they start sending the information out of your network, because the attackers know that sending a lot of information out of the network would be quite a noisy action and they risk detection. But if they know that they are detected, they probably would start doing it right away, okay? And so you need to do your incident response in the way that you are not alerting the attackers. And you need to know, before you start your incident response, you need to know the scope of the attack. So how many machines have been compromised, where they are compromised, so you can strategically define your incident response activities. That is the reason that you may see when you join the cybersecurity teams that it is taking us a lot of time. Even if we know that the attackers are inside the organization, we may not provide any action until we are pretty sure that we are not causing any further damage. But with having a lot of threat intelligence information, we are reducing the incident response time significantly, because If we identify that based on our information, hacking group X is attacking us, we know about their capability, we know about what they do, and we can quickly check, right, in our organization whether any of their footprints exist there, and we can plan our response accordingly. That CTI is a big data problem. I'm just trying to give you some information, relates the CTI to some of the backgrounds you may have, right? CTI and CTI processes are very much linked to machine learning, very much linked to data processing, and of course, very much linked on collecting the data from different sensors, from different sources that we have, and then timely mining them so we can respond back. And this is what we are looking for. We are trying to start from an anomaly in the organization, making sure that we are goal-based, which is that we are focused on very valuable targets, very valuable assets in our organization. And once we identify the tactics, technical procedures of the attacker, we create intelligence, or we use our intelligence to detect them. So that's the loop that you have every day in your organization, right? This is increasing the cost, and this is increasing the efficiency. So the more that you can detect or identify based on anomaly and based on your goal, you're saving costs. But if you're relying more on intelligence, that will become more costly for you. And it is less efficient in compared with anomaly-based, because intelligence-based information are very unique. So if you have intelligence about one hacking group, it doesn't mean that the other hacking group can be detected by that. So you are talking about very customized, unique information here. And as I said, yeah, the main result of the CTI is improved early detection. We are trying to detect the attackers before they cause any damage. And these are the usual skills. Of course, these are in addition to cybersecurity skills that you would gain or you need to have if you want to be successful in the cyber threat intelligence, threat hunting, right? So as you can see, machine learning plays a key role here. Data analysis plays a key role here. So if these are in your interest and you want to get these skills and use them in this domain, cybersecurity domain, cyber threat intelligence would be a good path to follow. And perhaps my last message to you is, don't forget, security is very little about tools and very much about people, right? That is just a message for everyone, because I am seeing when I'm talking with many people in the cybersecurity, everyone is talking about having the latest tool or having the latest technology. While tools can help, it is much more important that we train the people, because you can have the best technology out there, and that technology keep alerting that person that there is something wrong. But then if that person says that's okay, or accept the risk, or click on the link, all these technologies are broken. Finally, this is still what is governing our work in cybersecurity. The Santos rule: who knows the enemy and knows himself will not be endangered in hundreds of engagements. Who does not know the enemy but knows himself may be sometime victorious, but who doesn't know himself or the enemy will always be defeated. Thank you for your attention, and yeah, that's it from my side. I'm here to hear from you, right? Tell me if you have any questions about cybersecurity in general or my talk. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. It was really good. So if you guys have any questions, you can type it in the chat, or you can to ask directly.
I'll just go, I guess. So in my prior career, I was a financial analyst, and we actually had a large-scale ransomware attack. I was wondering if you could discuss, because they were adamant that they didn't pay the attackers. So if you could just kind of discuss at a general level the process of solving that without having to just directly pay attackers.
Right, ransomwares. Ransomware attacks are not new at all. I think the first ransomware has been written in 1980s, right? And that was like a floppy disk. I remember the data was on a floppy disk that you insert into a system, and then it was to encrypt it, the information. But with the introduction of the cryptocurrencies, that become quite a easy business, right? So you can just encrypt and then ask for money to be paid, and the money cannot be traced. So it becomes quite a lucrative business for many people. But you know, the professional hacking team or a state-sponsored hacking team are rarely using ransomware, right? Because you know, the technology for building a ransomware is straightforward. It's just a simple algorithm, simple application that encrypts the information and then provides the payment detail. So technologically, it's just very basic. And you know, it's quite noisy because when you drop a ransomware and encrypt your targets, the target knows that you are there, and you cannot benefit from the target in the future as well, because they either pay and then they hire someone to help them to remove the risk, or they are not paying, right, at all, right? So you lost the target. So what I'm trying to say is, when you are seeing the ransomware attacks, you are not dealing with professional or sponsored hacking teams. You are mainly dealing with cyber criminals, right? So that's the good side of it. But how we can not pay the ransomware, but retrieve our data? You know, what all these ransomware malwares are doing is they are dropping themselves on an organization, asking for a payment, and once the payment is processed, they are decrypting your information, sometimes, not all the time, because I have seen many ransomwares that they encrypt and they never decrypt even if you pay them, right? And they're decrypting your information based on the key that they have stored on a server in the cloud or somewhere in the world, right? So when the ransomware is dropped for the first time, many people don't know where is the server, right? But when it goes to the, say, forensic investigators who are investigating it, some people, some persons may start paying them. And if they start decrypting, we would understand where they are storing the key. And if they are storing the key on a server or a machine that we have access to, we can, or we can just get access to, for example, we can inform the law enforcement agencies, or we can inform the company that their server has been compromised and it is used as the place to store the key, right? We can tell them that your servers are compromised, just the keys are there, and they will seize the server, right? Once you get access to that server, it means you have the decryption key for all the clients have been impacted by the ransomware, so you can decrypt without paying, right? Because we already have access to the decryption key. That's one of, I mean, the most common way that I see the companies are not paying the ransomware and decrypting their information. What is happening is they are consulting with cybersecurity professionals, and we can search, we can find if the decryption key is available, and if it is available, then they don't need to pay, right? We just provide them with the key and they can decrypt it. But generally speaking, I am strongly against paying the cyber criminals in any way, because, you know, first you are supporting them, right, by providing more financial means to them. That's clear. But in addition to that, I have seen many companies who pay are getting compromised several times, right? Because if the attacker is in your organization, they probably put a backdoor. They probably create a ticket generating ticket, TKT is called, right, in your Active Directory and create a user for themselves. So you need to do a deep dive investigation, making sure that you really know how the attackers get in, how they get access to your systems, how they execute their codes, and try to remove all these things before thinking about paying the attackers. Otherwise, you will become like a bank for them, right? They just go and come back again, come back again, right? And in these situations, always try to get help from cybersecurity community or experts, right? As I told you, most of the ransomwares, more than 95% of the ransomwares keys are available out there, right? You know, because it is very unlikely for these cyber criminals to write a ransomware only for one specific target, unless that target is very valuable, right? They are not doing that. So probably there were other targets in the past, and probably we know we have seized the server that has this decryption key, and we can decrypt the information.
Thank you. That was great.
So Dr. Ali, there's a question in the chat. What are your inputs to machine learning? Are those just logging data traffics? Like, could you give us examples?
No, I mean, there are many sources, information sources for machine learning algorithms, right? They could be from network traffic, they could be from endpoint events, right? They could be from, say, even behavioral activities, like how the users, I mean, we have even built machine learning algorithms to identify if a user is who the user is claimed to be based on the behavior, like the speed that they are typing or how they are moving their hands, right? So there are many information that can be fed to these machine learning algorithms that can be used for security purposes, right? But of course, having access to these data is the very first step on using any machine learning algorithms, right?
Yeah. So to add on to that, like so we're all undergraduate students, so we learn algorithms, data structures, and different programming languages, software engineering, and those classes. But we're not like much into machine learning and stuff. But if you wanna consider a career in threat intelligence, you said you need to be like good at machine learning or have some idea about it. So could you like give us any tips or advice to get into machine learning, like for threat intelligence?
Sure, of course. Well, if you register for the programs that are in cyber threat intelligence, you will spend a good amount of time on machine learning and learning those algorithms too, right? Right. But there are tons of resources out there available if you want to learn machine learning, right? Including many books. So you can start from there, right? And I have seen many online classes too. But one of the resources that I really suggest for anyone who is interested in cybersecurity and trying to start understanding these different topics, including machine learning, including malware analysis, is this website, opensecuritytraining.info. There are tons of free and very quality training programs there. You will learn about many things in cybersecurity, in how you can write exploit codes or how you can detect exploit codes. I strongly recommend anyone who is interested in cybersecurity to at least have a look at the beginner level classes, right? You know, in our master classes, we start from the level that is intermediate here and go well above these advanced levels, right, that they have here. But this is the best source, free and quality materials.
Yeah, they have a lot of good courses. I might take them too. There's another question for the ransomware one. So what is the important solution against ransomwares? Is it just backup or is there any other solutions?
Oh yeah, solution against ransomwares. Well, regular backup would really help, but you need to be careful that you are having a strict security monitoring during your backup process, because I have seen that in many cases, ransomware itself is copied to the backup environment too. So when they launch, they are encrypting both your backup and your your data on site, right? So a lot of care should be given if your only defense is backup, right? But that could be the first good move. I would recommend that if possible, try to back up your information on the cloud, right? Because the cloud service providers normally have a more rigorous, I would say, security monitoring for all their clients, and you can always retrieve your information back in time, right, on the cloud. So that could be one of the best ways, right, to do that. But if you're using the backup, make sure that your backup information are monitored and are protected as much as your normal information are, right? And the other thing is you can limit the user's access. That's the most effective one. You know, the ransomwares are normally relying on the internal user's access to encrypt the information. So they are calling the Windows library for encryption to encrypt the data. And many users don't need to have the privilege to run those libraries, right? So if you can just limit the user privilege to what is really required. So for example, if you're talking about the office staff, they don't need to have the execution right at all, perhaps, right? So if you restrict the users, right, the user's access, you are significantly reducing the success rate of the ransomwares, right? So I would recommend that first think about minimum privilege for the users and then think about the backup, right? Because the backup process is more costly and it requires monitoring as well.
Hello, Dr. Ali. I have a question. So first of all, I'm happy to see you today. And the second thing, I'm a little bit confused when you talked about the different types of attackers and then what we should do. So how can we do threat hunting without a threat intelligence? And another thing, what is the difference between threat hunting and intrusion detection and prevention system? So I'm a little confused about all these things.
Yeah. I mean, on my first slide, I showed 5 layers of cybersecurity. It was second slide, I think, right? You know, the intrusion detection, the firewalls, these antiviruses are all passive defense mechanisms, right? So they are sitting on your devices, on your networks, and they are listening. If they see any matching between what they know and what is happening on your system, they are giving an alert to stop it, right? That's the passive defense mechanism. In the threat hunting, we are actively hunting for the attackers, right? So what does that mean? It means, for example, we are looking if any of the activities that we see on one of the machines is matching to known activities of an attacker. So for example, any of these machines are connecting to the specific IP address, or any of these machines are connecting to other machines inside your network. So for example, one of the things that the threat hunters are using a lot is, in a normal network, the client machine should only talk to the server. The client machine should not talk to each other, right? So if you see a client machine talk to another client machine, that means something out of norm is happening, right? And then the threat hunting people can go and analyze why these two machines are talking to each other, right? So it is not necessary for threat hunting to depend on the threat intelligence. For example, in the scenario that I told you, right? 2 client machines are talking to each other. You don't need to have any intelligence information about hacking groups, right? The fact that these 2 are talking to each other is out of norm, abnormal, and that would initiate the threat hunting process, right? But a lot of threat hunting activities are depending on the information from external sources, right? So for example, you know that a hacking group would send an email like this that has a link to, say, a website, that website is dropping the malware on the machine, right? And this malware is unique, okay? When you know this process, what you could do is you can check the logs of your email server, seeing anyone has received any email with that content or the variation of that content. If they do, and they have, then you can check whether they have clicked on the link. And if they did click on the link, did they receive the file? And during this process, you can always check why they click on that, why they receive the file. Do I need to add a technology? Do I need to train people, right? That is the main role of the threat hunters in the organizations, right? While the main role of threat intelligence people is to collect the information from all these outside sources, mapping them with the assets in the organization. These assets could be people, could be process, could be technology, and find the gaps, right? So based on the threats that we see, for example, we are finding that there is a hacking group based in France, and you are interested in targeting my organization. How they act, and based on their activity, should I send my employees to the training, or should I apply a stricter process, right? Or should I buy a new technology? That's the role of threat intelligence team. Of course, they are providing a lot of input for threat hunting, but threat hunters may depend on information more than threat intelligence only.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. So I assume there's not, right?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ali. This was really good, and thank you so much for the resource. I'll share it with all my members. And thank you so much. And